Hello and welcome to the Warp Shelf. I'm Frank Duran.
I'm Deshaun Vasquez.
And we are two artists reaching into the pile of movies, games, TV shows,
Art.
art,
Just general art.
to pull back what is
Worth taking with you. Sometimes that can be physically, or sometimes that can just be something to take with you at heart if it's not available physically.
Exactly. So today we have returned, people. We have returned to the AFI Top 100 list. We started the list strong with Toy Story and oh my goodness, what was the other movie, Deshaun?
Ben-Hur.
Ben-Hur. And Ben-Hur is our absolutely most popular episode of the podcast. So
That's so wild.
It's so wild. It's crazy. I don't understand. But guys, if it's because you wanted to skip a movie but still know what's important about it, then you're at the right fucking stop, guys. You're at the fucking, if you want the spark notes, if you want like what's good and what actually makes this important, you're here. You've made it. And we're gonna talk about
I love the Spark Notes comparison. There could be nothing more flattering than using us as a way to cheat your tests.
That would be wicked flattering. This is Yankee Doodle Dandy. This is number, I guess this makes this 98 on the list, because we had 100, 99, 98 on the AFI Top 100. If you guys weren't here for the other episodes, which you should check out those, but if you haven't, we wanted to do a list of like the top best movies and go through them, and we of course wanted to do the Internet Movie Database's top 250, but we realized it kind of shifted really fast, and it wasn't like always going to be that top 250. And of course there was some weird
user voted,
outliers.
like especially at the bottom, it like moves around a lot. Whereas like the AFI one, they only tend to like update every 10 years, so we should be okay.
We should be fine. We should be fine for a couple years on these podcasts. I think it's important to look at these movies because, of course, you want to see what American cinema is. You know, like what does it mean when we talk about American cinema? Because it's not just Hollywood now making movies. There's every country in the world is making blockbusters the same as Hollywood. So what does it mean to be an American film? You know, like what does it mean to be something that's made by American? And of course that's important because this is our 4th of July episode. So get that credit 4th of July episode, fucking celebrate the holiday or something. I don't know. If you're not feeling super patriotic, it's okay.
Understand.
We understand, but we can still talk about this pretty good movie, I would say. I think that this, even though there's a lot of dated shit in this, and there's definitely there is a blackface scene in this, and that is rough, and you're just like, what the fuck? And it comes out of like left field, but they're also trying to be like, we're doing music history, and like they did work in vaudeville, and that's like part of vaudeville, you know, like, so you're like, I see it as a history thing, but it's so rough still. You're like, oh my God.
Like, I work as a photo technician, so I'm often like scanning through like old albums and stuff like that.
Oh Lord.
Yeesh, the amount of times you would be surprised the amount of times I've had to like deal with albums of like old photos of blackface.
Oh, and you're like, because it's something that, you know, we've talked a little bit about this on the show, but it's like, it's something that's prevalent. It's like something that's still touching what we look as culture. Of course, with Mickey Mouse is my main example all the time, that like is the biggest blackface character of all time, that somehow we have Disneyfied enough that it's okay that it's just a blackface character that we're okay with, you know, like you're just like, what the hell? Like, I mean,
that one
Steamboat
at least
Willie
rides the line because they make it an anthropomorphic mouse, but just like the visual motif of it all.
And definitely Steamboat Willie was absolutely no question, because like that's what they were implying with him running a steamboat, you know, like you're just like, it's weird that we, you know, live with a giant entity that, you know, controls a lot of media with just a blackface character. Like, even if is a riding the line, it's riding a line. You're like, why does it even have to touch a line? You're like, why? Please don't touch that line. Like, let's not do that. And it's definitely rough here, but you can definitely take it as like they're doing history scenes. Like, he's looking back on history, and that is definitely a part of history. So you can definitely take that as that, but you can also be like, yeah, our society was okay with this for a very long time, even after we were like, oh, we don't do blackface no more. They were like, we'll shove it in a few movies, like it'll be fine, like, and you're just like, And that's why these things have product warnings now in front of these things, because they're like, oh geez, they're like, oh geez, we didn't realize.
Or if it's a TV show, they just get rid of the episode from the service.
I mean, I was watching the biggest recent one of other than this movie of blackface that I was like, Jesus Christ, I didn't fucking realize this, was I was watching Jungle Book, and we come to Want to Be Like You, and Baloo dresses up as a monkey and comes out and dances with the chimps, and you're just like,
and it's very minstrelly. Yeah,
and you're like, like literal physical pain. I like didn't realize,
like, it's still,
and I was like, that's one of my favorite songs, and I just like it, just like, you're just like, fuck, like that's still a mind fuck.
It's still prevalent, even when it's like played as like it's wrong and that's the joke. Like, I'm going, like, I finished Community, so right now I'm going through 30 Rock, because I never watched 30 Rock back when it was out, but I love Tina Fey.
Yeah, I love Tina Fey. Anything Tina Fey writes. I love
Kim and
Schmidt.
I'm really liking the show. It's a lot of fun.
Nice. Yeah, and it's
but
got,
I know there's an episode that's not on Hulu, which is where I'm watching it. There's an episode where one of the white actresses who's like the manic one, who's like the one who constantly needs attention, and Tracy Morgan's character, they decide to swap places for a day, and they put Tracy Morgan in whiteface and they put her in blackface. And the entire joke of the episode is like the entire cast, because it's basically the whole thing is like an SNL type show.
Yeah.
Everyone else on the cast just being like, what the fuck?
And the crazy thing about that is that was a real show in 2006. There's a show that won a fucking Emmy. And I give this credit to Jarvis Johnson and Jordan Akita. They have a whole series watching this show. And that's how I found out about the show, called Black, White. Like, not black and white, just Black, White. That's the name of the show. It won a fucking Emmy for makeup, where they literally race swapped two families. And they didn't just find a normal white guy who was like, wow, I want to learn about this. They found like the most racist dude to race swap. And it is one of the most rough shows I've ever seen. And it's just insane.
That could have been a direct parallel or reference to it then, because 30 Rock was like 2007.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. It may have been just like a reference on that show, because it wasn't just like, that's what I'm saying. It wasn't just like Fox fucking around. And Ice Cube produced this show, by the way. You're like, Ice Cube, please, God damn it. And you're just like, and he definitely didn't really know what he was producing, but he had the song, sang the song in the title, like Black, White. And you're just like, you're like, I don't like any of this, but it's quite the specimen of like early reality shows where they were just unhinged, uncontrolled, doing whatever for views, just doesn't matter. And this is absolutely one of them, where they were 2006 blackface, whiteface, and then winning a fucking Emmy for the makeup that they did.
And then immediately being made fun of for stuff like that, which was pretty much the same case for Tropic Thunder. Like, the joke is that it's like your stereotypical like method actor who like will do anything for a role, including something super problematic, and everyone around him is just like, dude, what the fuck?
Yeah, right. What the shit? And like it that's the thing, is at least we have that spot now of being like, what the fuck? But like, it's definitely thrown in this movie just as like, everyone knows this happened. It's just how it is. And you're just like, like,
I mean, this was still the era of just like, Just like, yeah, say, hey, get over here, toots. You're like,
yeah, you're like,
we got a lot of problems.
Yes. So, but to get back to the point, Yankee Doodle, get past the blackface because it's definitely shocking. We had to kind of talk about it.
Yeah.
It is that it's Yankee Doodle Dandy came out in 1942. It's directed by Michael Curtiz. Is that how you pronounce his name, Deshaun?
I think so.
He's the director of fucking Casablanca. Like this guy is just the pinnacle of his time of being just one of the great directors, because he did Casablanca in the same year as this. So 1942, this movie and Casablanca came out, and then 4 years before that, he did The Adventures of Robin Hood with Ian Flynn, and that's one of those that's one of the early blockbusters. You know, like that's and it's like, so this man was just like pumping out great movies, and I literally can't believe he did Casablanca, one of like the all-time great movies, and I think it's further up on this list.
It came out earlier that year?
Yeah, and this,
then
which is
a victory lap.
yeah, because this is kind of this big budget love letter to Broadway, you know, like, I mean, it's definitely a love letter to George M. Cohan. And George M. Cohan. And yeah, we may have to break out that accent a couple times because that's the whole movie. It's just like, I'm George M. Cohan and you're gonna listen to me. And you're just, but you know what? It's actually kind of fantastic. It's just this big love letter to George M. Cohan, but definitely to Broadway, which he was, they considered the father of, you know, like the owner of Broadway, like, because he wrote huge songs that now, and they bring it up in the movie. They like show him writing several of these, but he did Over There, Give My Regards to Broadway, The Yankee Doodle Boy, and Your Grand Old Flag. Like literally songs that we now consider national songs, you know, like songs that we all like have kind of embraced as like, yeah, that's a song we sing, you know, like, and it's just kind of incredible because the guy had been working in theater his whole life because his parents were in it, and they, you know, became the four Cohans, and like, but you know, he'd been working at this since he was a kid, and they do that whole thing. I do worry. They say in the IMDb facts that like this is very much like, this movie is very much like The Greatest Showman, where you're like, this guy actually wasn't that great in real life, and like, and they said, the daughter said this movie is what her dad wish his life would have been, you know, like where it was this like high victory lap the entire time, you know, like of just like, yeah, I was a stubborn boy, but I grew out of it and I'm a strong man, you know, like, which is definitely the through of this story.
Yeah,
and in reality, I don't know if it was
like,
that.
No, you're just an asshole.
Yeah,
just get it done.
Exactly. And like, so I think that there's a little bit of that here where we're making a musical out of a man's life that maybe wasn't always so musical, you know, like wasn't so dance number worthy, you know, like,
yeah.
But
and there is something to be said about like how to approach like biopic films like this, because there's a way to be inaccurate but accurate at the same time. Like you can still present your own story but still be accurate to like the heart of like what that person was like. Like I think the perfect way to summate it was Steve Jobs. I think if it was either Wozniak or it was Andy.
Yeah.
Where he was said, none of that happened, but all of it is true.
Exactly.
It's just like that exact scenario of like everyone meeting up just before a big press conference and stuff. No, but that's exactly what Steve was like.
Yes. And I like that. I think that you're right. Is that's the right way to do a biopic, really, is to and still have your like creative freedom, you know?
Because
like,
either way, it's still going to be a narrative that's not entirely accurate. There are very few adaptations
to make
like
it feel
this.
like a movie, you know, like that's really what happens a lot with these biopics, is that they have to feel like a movie where they have a struggle in the third act and then they, you know, beat that struggle against all odds and move on. And that's like every movie, but it's hard when you think about life doesn't work like that all the time, you know, like it's actually a constant struggle.
Doesn't have concrete structure.
Yeah, it's more of a constant thing, a grind, if you will. And and I think that's definitely a hard part about biopics, is that they can be like, you're like, but I do think it's quite he's a quite interesting character in and of himself, though. George Cohan, like, wrote more than 50 shows and published more than 300 songs during his lifetime, like a fucking powerhouse of himself, you know. And then we have all those greats that I mentioned earlier. But it's like, it's kind of wild how he was able to completely transform Broadway and like kind of create the American musical comedy. Like most of the comedies you see today that are, you know, musical comedies, which I know a lot of you probably are not watching all the time, but musical comedies, which I dig, are taking something from George here, you know, like, it's like, no question, he was making that type of like peppy feel that we get in like Guys and Dolls and many other, you know, influential shows that come later. It's just kind of impressive. They say in 1940, Judy Garland played the title role in a film version of the 1922 musical Little Nellie Kelly. Cohen's mystery play Seven Keys to Baldpot was first filmed in 1916 and has been remade 7 times, most recently as The House of the Long Shadows in 1983 with Vincent Price. That's a fun one. Like the guy had a far-reaching, life, you know, like even if, after his life, you know, like
just in case you think we're overburdened with remakes today.
Yeah,
as we've had to continually bring up on the show, remakes have been a thing since the jump.
I know, they're always just like, everyone's always like, oh, everything's a remake. I'm like, everything's always been a remake, guys. Like, let's get real here. That's the reason why you're putting butts in seats, is you know the story. Like, come on, let's be real here. But just absolutely insane legacy here. Even had a commemorative 15-cent stamp put out about him. So that, you know, the man had a very long reach, and of course his Wikipedia has the longest fucking description for him, which of course I hope to have that many fucking describers after me someday. Entertainer, playwright, composer, lyricist, actor, singer, dancer, and theatrical producer. You're just like, holy shnikes. And they do a good job of, in this movie, capturing his kind of like stopless energy, you know, like that just every moment was making something and just kind of putting it out there and working with people, and
just never shuts off.
I really did. I think the cast here is actually really fantastic. I think that, of course, James Cagney, sorry, thank you, does a fantastic job in the title role. But he's
fantastic in this.
Yeah, he's a. I know they used to say this all the time in the reveals. They're like, James Cagney is a powerhouse of the cinema, and you're like, yeah, he literally is. He's like a powerhouse on screen, especially with some of the dance numbers. You're just like, damn, he's got that Fred Astaire energy where he just like keeps it up the entire time, and you're like,
and I believe a lot of James Cagney's like performances and like mannerisms and the way he like carries himself, I think were one of the major like influences on the way Mel Blanc played Bugs Bunny.
Yeah, right? Isn't that super wild? You're just like, and you can see it too. Like, you can see the way he does it here. You're like, oh,
the like playfulness, the sort of like mile a minute, just like having in a conversation, he's already insulted you 3 times and you haven't even picked up on it yet.
Yeah, you're like, Jesus. But I also think Joan Leslie does a great job as Mary. Walter Hudson as Jerry Cohan is, of course, fantastic as the dad. But I give the absolute shout out to Richard Wharf here for his role of Sam Harris, his like writing partner of Cohan. And I love their dynamic. Like, I guess it was like kind of contentious on set because like Richard Wharf was method acting basically the entire time, and then like and kind of like embarrassing James Cargie, and like but like, you know, that's why James Cargie brings so much in those scenes. Cagney is like, he brings so much in those scenes is to like kind of play against him, you know, like that he's already so serious about it and doing it so like matter of factly, you know, like, and he's just like, I'll bring the energy even further. And I think you can kind of like see that on screen, and you get this better product on screen because they're kind of like competing with each other. And you're like, you're like, that's wild. Like,
which, to be fair, like, it's not the first time I've heard that makes a better performance. I've heard like classically trained actors like Ian McKellen like bring stuff like that up. Is like the best performance is when you're going head to head with another like great performer, and it's sort of a fencing match.
Yeah,
I've heard like Ian McKellen say that. I've heard like Jeremy Irons say something similar.
Right. So I'm getting like texts from Mary in the other room because she's like, don't you dare fuck up the history of this guy. So I want to read this to you guys. It says, immigrant musicians from the same time, Irving Berlin, who wrote America the Beautiful and was also a vet, and Cole Porter in the Gershwins. But interesting that Hollywood wanted to highlight the Irish immigrant over the Jewish ones during World War II. So you're just like, because they definitely are just like, yeah, he's an immigrant, he's Irish, you know, like, it's all, you know, like, keep them Irish out, you know, like, but they were just like, but Jews, you know, like, they're like, we ain't gonna make a musical about them, you know, like, you're like,
it's like,
yeah, that's a damn good point. So thanks to my wife for sending that through, because she makes a great point, is that like, it's definitely cool to see as an Irish descent guy, 75% Irish, is that, or as far as I know, I need to do fucking 23andMe or something to actually find out. But like, is that like, so it's cool to see that like that weird racism towards Irish people, you know, like it's so strange, you know, like, cause like you're just like, wow, to think about it. But it was like so prevalent back then, but then you have to think, you're like, but who was the actual people in danger here? You know, you know, like you're like, the Jews were actually in danger instead of these Irishmen who they just didn't like their accents for one generation, you know, like you're like, okay, you're like, what you're like, all right. But, you know, it goes to back to a couple episodes ago, I brought up Benjamin Franklin writing about how the Dutch aren't white, and I thought that was hilarious. I was like, oh my
God. I do remember you bringing that up.
You're just like, Jesus. But to get back to like what you're sitting down to watch, you know, like what you're actually here for, why people were buying tickets to this thing and made it so popular, and I think it won 3 Oscars for we got Best Actor in a Leading Role, Best Sound Recording, and Best Music. And for the wins, and they had 5 other nominations. So it's you're just like, so this was a very popular movie, and the reason is because the fucking music is bonkers the entire time. The musical numbers are crazy big. They go really hard. It's very patriotic, where they're like, he's meeting with Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and the country had already lost FDR, so it was like one of those things that you look back on him with such like, he's the best president, and he really fucking shaped what we are today, you know, like, but like they were looking back at him with such
such reverence,
and they include him as a character here, and you know, it's James, it's George talking to the president and telling his story, which of course is a little bit cheesy, but also you could feel what they were going for there was the patriotism. So like, that's the weird thing about this movie too, is that you're like, I like what's going on here. I like the musical numbers, but it's definitely a huge like propaganda piece, you know, a little bit, you know, like it's a huge propaganda thing where you're just like, they're like, yeah, but America's great. Even though we hated that Irish immigrant, we accepted him after a while, you know, like, you're just like,
that's always the struggle when you're like watching a film this old and like this much of its time and embracing
Yeah.
that time, is that you do sort of run into it. And this isn't, and of course this isn't just exclusive to film. This is any sort of like older media in like any medium. It's it reminds me, you know, that you've ever seen that that Jane Lynch meme where it's just like, I'm going to make something blah 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 blah. I saw one that's just like, I'm going to judge these classics with with tastes that are so modern.
And that's definitely a rough thing. Like, you can't take off your modern lens most of the time. You know, like, it's hard to. But, you know, if you kind of just, you know, be like, okay, I'm going to watch it, you know, as it is, you know, like, it is a pretty great musical. Definitely one of, like, you can see why this is on the list, you know, like, it is a great musical full of great numbers with an absolute stacked cast. Like, no question in my mind is this cast, like, just the top of the day, you know, like, and you're just like, I fucking love that. And really the real faults of the movie aren't the movie. It's just looking back on it being like, that's fucking rough. Like, because really it moves pretty well. The movie moves pretty well. It's got great numbers. It's an uplifting story, you know, like, and even though it's definitely like it's like a propaganda type of thing, but you know, it's cool. It's cool. You know, like,
I do think it is important to view movies like this, though. So even if it's like unabashedly like propaganda, like you say,
yeah,
because it just gives you a good framework as to like what the mentality was back then.
Yeah, right. You're just like, okay, I see what they were kind of their thought process. You know, like, they're like, okay, this is the hero we're gonna hold up. You know, like, this is the guy that we're like,
which is why I think it's a perfect compromise to like, okay, this is problematic by modern sensibilities. Instead of trying to get rid of it and trying to ignore it, just put a disclaimer up or something.
Yeah, right. Just and I think that's important too, is that you at least are being like, yeah, this is weird now. You know, like, you're just like, this is fucking strange. But, you know, you're like, all right. I like that being like, I like being able to throw that on there, because you're just like, at least we're not, you know, you're covering your butts a little bit, you know. You're not just being like, we stand behind all of this. Like, you're just like, no, don't.
We don't, but trying to ignore it could also be as bad.
It could be really bad. But I would say that if you take the modern lens off, if you like kind of put everything aside, it's a fun musical. It's worth the Oscars.
It's very much like a feel-good like success story.
Yeah. And I really did. It's like, I do like those songs. You know, I grew up with those songs, even though I look at them now being like, but I see, you know, I like all the songs they incorporated into this, and really, what's great about this movie is the scale most of the time. The amount of people they shove on screen and are doing the whole scene together is astounding, you know, like, and it's not, you know, it's of the day, so it's not any CGI or anything. They actually just have a shit ton of people on screen most of the time. And you're just like, all right.
And it just has to work.
It just has to work. I really love the cinematography of this too. It's a black and white film. And the lighting is so soft and buttery the entire fucking time that you're just like,
buttery's a good way to describe it.
Yeah, exactly. It's you're just like, beautiful. And I really think that this is a fantastically shot film too. You know, like, it looks amazing, and there's definitely whole numbers. It's like classic old musical where they would just like a play, start the number and do the whole number in one shot, you know, like, and I, of course, always respect the fucking integrity of that, where you're just like, yep, unflinchingly one shot. If anybody fucks up, you'll fucking see it, you know, like, type of thing. And you're just like, I fucking, the integrity of that is fucking insane. And they are able to do that with the pony musical that they're doing there, the racing. What, I forget what the name of that musical was.
Yeah, but I know the one you're talking about.
But you're like, okay, all right. It's not exactly it's racist, but it's not a sexist movie. There's definitely, so that at least it's not like totally derogatory towards women. There's definitely one character that's pretty dumb, but there's overall that's it. You're just like, okay, yeah. He's got they got a healthy look at women, at least, even if it's 1940s, you're like, okay, you're like, here's my actual partner. Here's who actually helped me do this, and you're just like, okay.
It approaches it a pretty healthy way, the way they like bounce off each other. I think
it's not passing any Batchelder test or anything, but you're just like, ah.
But in terms of this time, relatively like, okay, not bad.
Right.
In fact, the scene where he meets Mary's probably my favorite in the film. I just love the back and forth.
Yeah.
How she thinks he's actually an old man, and like he just slowly continues to like pull off pieces of the makeup, and she just gets frightened by it.
That's more of the Bugs Bunny thing you're saying, right?
Yeah.
That's
exactly.
really it. Is that like the Bugs Bunny is very that, and you're like, I mean, Bugs was dressing in drag before everybody, just kidding, but that's not true actually, but like, you know what I mean. On screen. But that's not even true either. That was that dressing in drag on screen was happening so often in early movies. You're like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
I mean, gentlemen prefer blondes.
What you're basically trying to say is just like, it's been around so long. Why is this still a problem?
Yeah, you're like, Jesus Christ. So, but I do think we don't get a lot of great musicals nowadays that have this big of a budget. So it is nice to watch something that's like this, just huge in scale and budget and love and tons of money.
Yeah. Like times have certainly shifted, and we definitely went into this when we actually did our musical episodes like really early on.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a whole musical episode.
We did have a whole.
That was early.
Yeah, that was early. We've now referenced 2 episodes in a row, very early episodes.
Very early.
Still find them on galaxygeek.com. Might not be on the same YouTube as this, but they are all on the same Galaxy Geek, or just scroll down on a podcast.
But just the idea, but it's definitely, I just bring it up ahead of time just so I don't feel like I'm reiterating myself too much. But that was also so long ago now.
Yeah, you're like, wait.
But just the idea of like that transition of like how musicals kind of built Hollywood in the early days, and how much it's like sort of fallen out of fashion, though they haven't completely gone away.
Right. It's still happening. It's just not the way it was, the like factory of putting out musicals. This historically wise, this is also the first time a living president was depicted in sound film, so you're like, okay, cool, that's cool, like you're just like, that's what it says here. And then also I do want to bring up probably my favorite scene in the entire movie was what the biggest quote from this movie is all the time was the death scene of George dying next to with his father, and that scene like really fucking pulls on the heartstrings. They did a really good job in that scene. I was kind of like, holy shit when you see that. When you're witnessing like just 2 great actors doing great things together on scene, you're just like, holy fuck. That's definitely one of those scenes.
Have that and sprinkle a little dad stuff for your end. And
yeah, you're like,
you got yourself something emotional.
You got you something emotional there. It's gotcha. Also, Mary's also texting from the other room. American democracy equals every guy can meet the president. We are all equals. So go die in France. It's fine. You're just like, yeah. You're like, Yep. That's pretty much it. But I really like, it can't be understated how good of a performance James I'm gonna
Cagney.
Cagney's performances here. Like, I mean, he won the Oscar for it, but that end scene, it like catches you off guard. There's also a scene where you can see he breaks a rib and then keeps fucking going, and you can tell he's in pain, but just kind of keeps doing the rest of the number, and he finishes it out. You're just like, that's how that's Leo DiCaprio just fucking breaking the glass on his hands, type of shit, like or
the classic,
of course, my
Viggo
favorite.
Mortensen.
Yeah, I was like,
Viggo Mortensen breaking his foot
and actually screaming. You're like, yep. It's just. It's a fantastic performance. He is a star. It's one of those things that if you don't watch old movies often, you don't understand what they meant by like star power, like literally able to like command an audience even if you haven't seen them before and like completely win them over, and just be like, you are on their side. That's what old movie star power was, and that still happens. People, I mean, it's kind of turning on Chris Pratt, but people kind of do that to Chris Pratt nowadays. They're like, oh yeah, Chris Pratt's in it, I'll see it. They used to do that for Will Smith, and like there's lots of still Hollywood big stars, but not like we used to have. And I think,
it's a different sort of thing.
And I think you can feel the different sort of thing here. Like it's
I know,
just like, wow.
I know Stuart Cohan was like still alive while this film was in production, was brought on as sort of like a mild collaborator that like James Cagney could like reach out to and talk to. And I think he had like got to see the film not too long before he passed away.
Yeah. Right. And yeah, no, he really loved it. He said he was, like,
and I know Cagney spoke to like, they had similar like dancing styles, but getting to practice and like get his style down packed, and I think they had said he like sprained both of his ankles.
You're just like, Jesus Christ, the shit they used to go through to make movies. You're like, we don't have to do that no more.
Nope.
Like nobody's gotta do that.
That's why it's always sort of like weird. You like the appeal that they were in danger, but also they probably shouldn't have been in danger to begin with. But also
you're like,
exciting.
You're like, exactly. You're like, it's like the same thing with the Top Gun Maverick thing. Everyone's all like, wow, it's so cool they actually did it. And I'm like, I don't know, it seems slightly dangerous, like that we were just like, hey, actors ready to fly fucking jets. Like,
yeah, especially with Cruise, that's just the thing Cruise does in all his movies now. You're just like, do you need an intervention, my friend? I
mean, to be fair, it means he's like one of the most skilled, well-rounded people in the fucking world, which is kind of was what I've heard from like all those leading men love saying that. I think Ryan Gosling said it. I've seen George Clooney say it. I've seen even Tom Hanks say it, is that like they get to do all these things in different movies and learn all these different skills and just be these like weird actual badasses, like actually like be like, yes, I know how to ride a horse and drift a car and like and jump from high places and kung fu fight and light and like actually
and climb a building in Dubai.
Yeah, you're just like, Jesus. Yeah, and like, yeah, exactly. With Tom Cruise, you're just like, okay, like I'm not exactly rushing out to see Top Gun. Not that
I've heard it's really good.
I've heard it's really good. I'm not against it. I
always liked the original Top Gun. I'm not like huge about it, but I like it.
I can't remember if I've seen it all. It's like one of those things that I've definitely seen Top Gun, and I've seen so many clips of Top Gun on like TV randomly, like that. I feel like I've seen Top Gun, but maybe I need to sit down and just be like,
have you seen it just in patchwork and it's formed a complete picture? Or have you actually seen the movie?
Exactly. That's the old days of flicking channels, though. That like we have a whole generation where it's like, I feel like I've seen that movie. You're like, I haven't seen that part of that movie. Like, and you're just like, yeah, because
you see so much flash frames that it forms the complete thing.
Exactly. I feel like that's the problem with like Avatar, like you're just like, it's like 4 or 5 hours on TV and you're just like, people haven't seen that full movie, recently. They just seen clips of it on TV, like you're just like, because it's too damn long on TV. Fuck that. Like, but besides the point, I mean, this one's only 2 hours long, 2 hours 7 minutes for Yankee Doodle Dandy here, and it definitely is a quick 2 hours, I would say. It's pretty fast.
I would say so.
It moves,
I'd like
watch
the first half of it like one night, but it was just starting to get late, so I like stopped at the halfway point and then like finished the rest in the morning.
Okay, good. That's good. We sat down and just watched it and really enjoyed it, you know, like
the only reason
screaming at the blackface, you know.
The only reason I stopped was because it was already super late when I did start it, so it was like 2 a.m. and I was getting tired.
Nice.
I'm usually pretty good at just being like, I'll just tough it out.
I'll just tough it out. Now, why are we watching? Why would you watch this in 2021? Is really the question, you know, like it's like it's on the AFI Top 100s. Why is it on there? And like why and Deshaun,
well, it is the American Film Institute's list, and
right?
This is very American for better or worse, especially for its period. But I think it's
one of the most patriotic movies I've ever sat through, no question. You know, like one of the most like
speaks to what I had said before. Like it's a good framework to see like what mentality like the country had at that point, and also just what films in general and just art forms, what we used to value a little more.
Yeah, exactly. And you could see these artists making these things as like a form of patriotism, you know, like,
and even by the end, it also has the self-awareness to know like what the future holds with that scene with the teenagers who are just like, oh, we never heard of any of that. Were you in any movies?
I did like that. And it's funny because we just did Why the Last Man, and they kind of do that scene again at the end of Why the Last Man, where it's like he was so big and the star of Broadway, and he's the man who literally saved the planet. No one fucking knows who he is, you know, like no one or gives a shit. You're like the new generation just lives, you know, like with what the world is, doesn't look back.
Plus, I think movies like this are interesting when it is about someone like so driven, whether it's like an artist or like an entrepreneur of some sort, just like someone so driven and just stubborn. Sometimes you have it on one end of the spectrum where they're just like, God, they're a prick, like Steve Jobs. That's what makes Steve Jobs so entertaining.
Yeah, it's great.
Just like people are complicated. And then you have this where like, sure, as we had established before, the real Cohan, apparently not so nice a guy. But here it's just like it's just a dude who just wants to perform, wants to leave a mark.
Exactly. And I agree with you. It's fun to see those like powerhouse movies, you know, those guys who just like can't be stopped. They kept moving. Nothing held them back when they were working, you know, like it was just go. And, you know, it's also a fun way to do the musical themes that he brought into his movies into a movie about his life too, you know, like him sneaking his way into his first like selling rehearsal for musicals. Like he just kind of like sneaks in with this buddy, and that's like it's funny because it's a moment that's like true to his life, but also is like a huge plot point in so many musical comedies after that, you know, is that like, you know, like they like tricked their way into doing something and now they gotta do it, you know, like, or, you know, like that they like tricked their way into doing their dream, you know, like, and you're just like, oh, all right.
Yeah, which just continues to speak about how inaccessible it is.
Exactly. It's like, I mean, it's the Steven Spielberg story of that you know, you hear all the time that he like just kind of locked himself in a place on the lot so that way he got his shot, you know, like he just kind of like was like, I ain't leaving until like, you know, like you guys read this shit, you know, like, and like was very pushy about it, and you're just like, and you know, you gotta love those stories, but also it's one of those things where you're just like, that was very white privilege of the time. Like that the man was able to break into a place and they were like, I like your chutzpah, instead of being like
you got moxie, kid.
You got moxie, kid, instead of being like, you're going to fucking jail. And it's like that's kind of the weird like lie that America tells itself sometimes, is that like it's okay if you just be pushy enough, you can push yourself into this dream, and you're just like, or it could just be luck, or the kindness of others, you know, like it could be those couple things. I don't know. Crazy shit. But it's like, it's funny that that's like kind of the weird lie we all tell each other. The bootstraps are there, and you're like, that saying doesn't even work, the bootstraps thing, because that's not what you do with bootstraps. You don't they don't go up. They're bootstrapped. They're right here. They don't go any. What are you talking about? Pull yourself up by your bootstraps.
What a flawed metaphor.
Yeah, what a flawed metaphor, because you sit down to pull up your bootstraps. Like, what are you talking about? Like, it's just the flawed metaphor, and we use it all the time. And you're just like, oh my God. But is there anything else you want to bring up about this movie?
No, I don't think so. I did enjoy it more than I thought I would. I had like no. It's not that I went into it expecting that I wouldn't like it. I just had no expectations or like anything really going in.
Exactly. And I would say that's probably the best way to take it in. But that's also probably the best recommendation of this movie, is that if you're probably going in just as blind as everyone else into this movie, and it still somehow charms, you know, like it's still like, you know, you feel like you watched a great piece of entertainment, you know, like, and you're like, wow, like that. So yeah, I think this deserves its spot on the list. Now, on the top AFI 100, I really like, I know that's the question that we have to ask ourselves. Does this actually belong on the list? And I think, yeah, no, absolutely. This is one of those ones that I think America can look back on with pride, even if it is a propaganda piece, other than the blackface, of course. You're just like, if we just kind of, we don't want to move past it. We just have to be like, oh God, Jesus Christ.
That is what I had told you while I was watching it. I'm like, oh, I've started it. I'm liking it so far. I haven't gotten to the fucked up shit yet, but
yeah, I haven't gotten to any fucked up shit yet, but here it comes. And really, if we're talking about owning it, or you know, get it on sale, I think this is so our normal rating system of if it is so perfect, we get the special edition. We have the pre-order rating. We have the get it now rating. We have the rating of get it on sale, and then we have nope. It literally, like, don't even think about it. That's what it means. And I would say this is kind of a little bit of a mix of, if you don't care about the history of the movie, this is a get it on sale type of thing. But if you do if you enjoy like the history of this, and like the like that this was such a big movie, and you know, like done by great people and great directors, and you're a film buff, this is like, I know there's no criterion of this, but this would be a great criterion, you know, like,
yeah,
just like,
it's definitely a good like film buff like flex movie. Just like, look, I have sophisticated taste. Look, I have Yankee Doodle Dandy on myself.
Exactly. You're just like, okay. And it basically, I would say the movie, you go in being like, Yankee Doodle Dandy wasn't always a song, and you're like, no. The way we fucking talk about Yankee Doodle Dandy was made by this motherfucker. And you're like, wow, that's an amazing story to know. You're just like, all right. You know, like, now I know some weird American history. You know, like, yeah, good thumbs up, I guess.
Some weird American history through a very specific lens.
Yes. So, guys, basically, yeah, what would you give it, Deshaun? Do you agree that special edition, but also
I'm with you
on sale? Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. So basically, guys, happy July 4th, I guess. And basically use this holiday to get cheap hot dogs is what I'll say. That's what I use this holiday for now. You know, you can just be like, wow, they got some cheap ass hot dogs.
I'm sure there's plenty of people out there who like hot dogs as much as you do, if not more.
Yeah, I'm sure there is. I can't be the only one. Can't just be me and Sonic the Hedgehog. But thank you guys for tuning into the Warp Shelf. Thank you for all your support of the show. We're going to keep doing the AFI Top 100. So if you want to like watch along with us, next up is Blade Runner. So we're going to watch right now on HBO Max. There is the final cut. I think is what they call it, right, Deshaun? The final cut,
which is the best version.
And we're that's the one we're going to talk about, that one and the original a little bit.
And by extension, since I've seen it.
And of course the other editions that exist, but we're mainly going to talk about those editions. So if you want to watch along with us, that's up next. And then we I gotta look at what's the next on the list after that. But we will, of course, we have several. I don't think we're gonna do a Miss Marvel episode. Sorry, guys, I don't think that's gonna happen.
That one's also getting like fairly positive buzz from what I've seen. Like I'll give it
really
a shot.
Loved it. I was like, okay, Dan Slott loved it. I was like,
it could be one of those things where like it is marketed just poorly because we don't know how to market stuff for younger audiences anymore. We just make it super cringe looking.
Yeah, and you're just like, wait a minute. So the next up on the list is Do the Right Thing, and then the Last Picture Show. So if you want to kind of hop along with us, we will be doing current things that have come out, but we will be doing these as kind of the like constant. You'll still have this AFI series going on, so that way we don't do as many filthy casuals. People like them. If you like them, we'll do them. Leave a comment down below if you
like doing them. We just like to space them out and not rely on them too much.
Yes, exactly, and it's fun to talk about these like film history movies. That we can kind of like dive into the film history, and
we have like a set list that we can do.
Yes, exactly.
As opposed to like bowing to the whims of like whatever the studios decide to put out.
And it's gonna of course just get crazy towards the end here. Like you have some like wide reaching ones here through like 70s and 80s in the AFI list, but then once we get to the end, it's just like all bangers. Like so it's just like so I feel like this is always this is a fun list that we're doing. And we'll do, and of course we'll have some more great. Do the right thing. We'll have some more great talk about race there. That'll be a fun one. To be a good time. But guys, thank you so much for supporting the show. Check us out on galaxyofgeek.com, where every episode is in video and audio form. But we also have tons of social media. Check it out. It's in the descriptions. And basically, guys, thank you for supporting the show. See our personal Instagram and Twitters on I'm Yep Frank on there.
Mod Karika.
And I also have Yep Gundam if you're into Gundam. And
really making a lot of new friends over on that side of the pond.
Yeah, no, I did 3 the other week now, that because this show will come out July 4th. I did 3 episodes, 3 things with guys streaming this week that we're recording this, and like it was such an honor to talk to everybody, but it's like really fun to do these extra shows, like I like doing them. So yeah, it's good to talk about Gunpla. Not that we won't at some point get Deshaun to watch some Gundam at some point. We don't know when. He'll crumble, but we're gonna keep trying. But it'll happen someday. But thank you guys for supporting the show. If you're still listening, really, I can't believe you're still listening. Thank you so much. And I hope you all have a great rest of your week. Adios.
See you next time.